Our screens are pretty dark, huh?
Yeah. Like, can you make me out there?
This is as dark as it gets. And I don't know what it was. In the cinema, I don't know if it was the projectionist. I don't know if it was the movie itself. But this is how dark half the fucking movie was. What do you think it was, Elias?
I don't know, because we had that trailer that was really quiet as well. I literally had to turn around and go, dude, am I suddenly going deaf? I don't know.
So unless everyone had the same movie going experience as us, they're not going to get the joke of why we have started so dark.
Yeah.
Why there is no light and why you can barely see us in this fucking video.
Apart from a small group of people that were in the cinema with us.
Yeah. Anyways, here we are for Ranked and Reviewed. We're here to rank and review the latest Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. And we have a lot to say on it, except for the fact that it was dark. So let's get into it, huh? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ranked and Reviewed. I am your host, as always, Tomye West, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, ALANNIS Maximus.
Greetings.
And we're here to review and rank Wakanda Forever next to the original Black Panther movie. We just went and saw this at an early advanced screening, and we have a lot to say on it, I guess, including the fact that what you just saw was a lot of the movie was very dark, and it was so dark to the point that we and Alana sat in the cinema going, "Can you even see what's going on the screen right now?" Like, it was unfucking believable how dark it was.
You can totally see more of me than you could in the movie.
You can. You definitely can. So before we get into it, please subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, and leave a like. It would help us out a lot. Now, with that, we're going to bring up an overview of said movie. Let's talk about it. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Release date 2022. Rated PG-13, which is different. It's a bit different from the first one, which was rated 12 fucking A. This movie went for 2 hours and 41 minutes, and the synopsis goes a little like this. The people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn their death of King T'Challa. This is directed by Ryan Coogler, written by Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. It stars Tenoch Huerta, Letitia Wright, and Angela Bassett. And this movie, obviously, because it's just opened, has no box office results as of yet.
It's made $5.
Doesn't even seem like it has the actual box office budget listed either at the moment. Nope. No box office budget. So for all we know,
$12.
Yeah, $12 this movie cost. $12. $12.50. And if they would have just spent that extra 50 cents, maybe that wouldn't have been as dark lit. No. So, with that was our overview. Right now, let's get into our thoughts on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And as always, I'll let Alannus take the floor. So, Alannus, take me on a journey with your thoughts of Wakanda Forever.
It was too long. The first act was a real struggle. Like, it moved too slowly. I get that they needed to give Chadwick that tribute, and I'm glad they did, but they dwelled on it too much, and it also, I won't say that yet. They dwelled on it too much, and it kind of ruined the pace. Like the second and third act were paced pretty well, especially the third. But yeah, I felt like it could have been about 40 minutes longer. They fixed a lot of mistakes from the last one, like apart from lighting in dark scenes. The CG was really good. Like I didn't have any problems with it, like we did in the first Black Panther movie.
I actually found a few spots of CG that I thought looked a bit rough, including the water breaking through the wall in Wakanda.
Yeah.
Did you think that looked rough, or was that just me?
It definitely didn't look perfect.
It was very like blurry. It looked very. The water just looked very CG, for some reason. Majority of the time, the CG was great. I would say even some of the bits with like when she had the spike in the car and like the spike that car like on the highway. Even some of that looked a little bit janky.
Yeah.
But it wasn't horrible CG. You know, basically the whole movie was done fantastically CG wise, but there were a few moments that stood out to me where I was a bit like, "Ooh, that's a bit rough." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think another thing I liked was Neymar. Neymar, I was apprehensive about him because in the comics he's not a Native American or South American or whatever the correct term is. I'm not sure. A Mayan, I guess. But when they kind of change it to that, I'm like, because I sometimes you can feel like it's catered to a demographic rather than a good story. But the changes were good. They explained it well. I can understand why they made it not Atlantis, because if they made it Atlantis, everyone's going to go,
Where's
"Oh,
Aquaman?
that's Aquaman," even though Namor came first. But I get why they didn't do that. And it's weird because on paper in the trailers, I felt like making him not a white guy in the sense of they shifted Aquaman's race. I thought they were kind of going to try and go in that direction, but that really wasn't what it was about at all. I think they were just trying to remove themselves from that as much as possible, which was interesting. And the way he flew, I really like that, like the ankle wings and the way he kind of stepped through the air. I think that was really cool. It wasn't a typical kind of like up and away, which was refreshing.
And there's another concern that you had, but I think you should definitely raise the concern. I know you didn't. You said you didn't know if you wanted to talk about it too much because people might take it the wrong way. But I still think it's an important thing that you bring up, which is the way you felt about Chadwick Boseman,
Yeah.
and how he was handled in this. So why don't you talk about that?
I'll say, like, obviously it's not a secret that the character dies, but a little bit of a spoiler warning in how. I think the first thing that it ruined the immersion for me because they made it so close to how Chadwick Boseman actually died. He was sick, he was hiding his sickness, and by the time Shuri found out, she couldn't find a cure. It was very suggested that it was like cancer, like a hidden sickness that killed him, and he couldn't be cured in time. That I get it, but it kind of I don't think they should have made that comparison so closely. It removed me from it blurred the lines between the actor and the character. And they kind of did put too many memorials in there for him. Like the start of the movie, the first 20 minutes was just going on about T'Challa. The end 10 minutes was all about going on about T'Challa. Spoiler alert again. The after credits part was a tribute to Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa. There's a sweetness to it, but at a point as well, it's the points made, and it kind of it started to feel forced and too there, I think.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I felt the same way about the majority of this movie with you, which was that it's the first 40 minutes, 50 minutes was like a slog. I think that they did make it too much like they were saying goodbye to Chadwick Boseman rather than Black Panther, and that took you out of the movie because you were thinking about Chadwick Boseman and not Black Panther. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And while we definitely were all keen on them giving a good proper like send off to Chadwick Boseman, I thought even something slight and little like would do it. And what I really would have liked them to do was how we got that extended Marvel logo with just Chadwick Boseman on the extended Marvel logo. It went for like, a bit longer than usual Marvel logos do. I think even just that and the ceremony that they hold for him at the start would have been plenty of sort of respect given to Chadwick Boseman.
Especially when you factor in Stan Lee got nowhere near that kind of a memorial, and he's the reason we're all here, like for these comic book movies.
And also for the fact of that, like, I felt more heart-wise about Chadwick Boseman just by the silence of the Marvel credit and showing him in there. I felt more emotion about his death than I did in any other part of the film, because that was real and that was a point in the movie where they were able to make that real and dedicated to Chadwick Boseman. But when you make the rest of the movie feel like it's a dedication to Chadwick Boseman, not Black Panther, that's where it takes you completely out of it. And yeah. I know. But I will say some of the action was fantastic. The story I felt lacked a lot compared to the original, in my opinion. I think the original was more fun. I think the original had amazing build up to like the first act of Black Panther is fun and engaging and exciting, and it doesn't really let up the whole movie. You know what I mean? Whereas with this movie, it didn't start off with a bang, and it definitely took 40 to 50 minutes to get to the point where it felt like, okay, so now we're at the point where the first movie like nailed it, from this, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if like that's me explaining it the right way, but yeah, like the first 40 minutes of this movie were just so lacking compared to the first 40 minutes of the original. And then by the time we got to the action-paced stuff in this movie, like 40 minutes afterwards, I still don't even know if I think it matched the action in the original. How would you feel about that?
Absolutely. I think the end part, like when Shuri escapes and Namor initially attacks Wakanda, that point up until the end fight, I think that's paced really well, and that matches the first movie. A little bit before that is okay, and the start is just walking through mud. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, and I think in the start part as well, it's where there's the most of dark scenes. Like, you see the I can't remember the name of their country, Namor's people kind of appear on the boat and that, and it's like, I can't even see you. I see some feathers and I see some blue skin. Like what you said, are we watching Avatar?
Dude, that's what I was saying is, like, we're seeing Avatar in, like, a month's time around this time, yeah? Those villains were, I know that's the way it is in Black Panther, but they are so similar to the Na'vi in Avatar that I was like, they move like them. They've even got like headbands like them, like with the feathers off them. They dress tribalistic and stuff. And I get that that's like the source material you got from Black Panther. But
that's an interesting thing though, because the tribal part, like I guess the Aztec Mayan kind of look, that's actually just the movie. The blue is from the comics, but the other parts, that I think the combination of the two things that made them look like Na'vi, one was from the comics thing going, we better keep this, but then they also added this, and that's where that connection is. It's kind of like, huh. Like, well, I don't think it was intentional, but as you said, it looks like it.
It looks definitely intentional. And I mean, I felt like it took us way too long to get to who the real Black Panther was going to be in this movie.
Yeah, that felt like a slog, and once again, bit of a spoiler for a cameo. So you want what I'm about to say? The Killmonger Easter egg felt forced. I don't think he needed to be there. It could have been her mum the whole time, her father. That just didn't feel like it held any real relevance there. It was just, yeah. There was no gravity there. There's no reason to see him and him just go, oh, just kill the guy, because she wanted to kill him anyway. Like,
Yeah,
there was no influence from him.
as much as we heard that this was going to be a 3-hour long runtime, it was not. It was 2 hours and 41 minutes. And while people will go, well, that's only 20 minutes less than what people said, that is a shitload of a difference, because I'm pretty sure the Batman was like 3 hours, yeah?
Yeah.
And like literally I couldn't have walked out of the Batman any quicker because it was just that long. And with this movie, while it was 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it almost didn't feel like it was 2 hours and 40 minutes after we got past that sluggish start. You know what I mean? I also didn't come away from this movie feeling depressed like I did from the Batman. So
Yeah, it's interesting because we said Batman was about half an hour too long. It was like that last 5 or 10 minutes was where I'm at the point where I'm like, can we wind it up?
and that's another comparison I want to make about this to the Batman, which is the first half of the Batman again feels like a bit of a slog. And me and you said that like it got good when the city started flooding and like chaos went completely insane, like all the multiple like Riddler cronies shooting people and Batman like dragging people through the water and stuff. Like that's when the movie like shined at its best, but it just took so long to get there. And I almost felt like with this movie that was almost the same thing with a lot of what we were waiting to see.
And coincidentally, it was when a city flooded.
That was exactly. That's when it started becoming very interesting again, and it's just like, yeah, man. It doesn't have the same charm from the first movie where it's like, again, it starts in the hood. It starts with it like being very Los Angeles, Oakland, whatever, eccentric. You know, I don't know. Half the jokes didn't hit for me. Like half the cinema was like dying of laughter at some parts, and I was like,
at one point, I can remember turning around and going, apparently that was funny.
yeah.
Just.
So like coming from you, a big MCU fan, I'm gonna put mine at last. I'm gonna talk a little bit about mine last. Coming from you as an big MCU fan, how do you think this compares to the rest of Phase 4, which has wrapped up after this movie? And were you expecting better? Were you expecting worse? And what do you expect from the next one?
I think I was expecting the better end of what I was expecting. Like it didn't blow my mind. It didn't let me down. It was just a solid entry. And I think one of the stronger entries in Phase 4, there's a couple like Eternals, Black Widow that aren't that great. Like I don't rate them that highly. They're okay. They're not bad, but they're not as good as movies like this. I think it's a good wind-up point as well. Kind of leaves all the heroes that we had before kind of wrapped up to where they're kind of going off to or leading into, things like that. I'm just a little upset that it didn't lead into the next phase right after the credit scene. Like there was rumors of certain things like Doctor Doom, and things like that, even to lead into Ant-Man, but no connection to make me go, oh, bring on Phase 5. It just felt finished. And that was a bit weird, I think. But yeah, it was out of one of the weaker phases, it was one of the better movies in it, I think.
Yeah, so like, what would you said that was the bottom of this phase?
Black Widow, I think that just
And Morbius? Is that in?
That's
Because that's a Sony movie. It's not really an MCU movie.
That's it. Technically not. And they've done some weird shit with Morbius that makes no sense. So I'm going to say no at this point, but maybe. Yeah, I don't really count it as a mainline one, at least.
Cool. What did you think about the villain in this compared to the previous villain?
I liked him a lot more than Killmonger. I felt a little more compelled by him. They also did him really well. He's a villain, but he's also not entirely a villain. Like he's like Magneto and Doctor Doom, where he just wants to look after his people. And the means that he does that is where he kind of becomes a bad guy. But at the same time, he's not entirely evil. He has reasonable motive in the right angle, if you know what I mean.
Definitely, I definitely get what you mean. See, Killmonger's obviously the guy that when we got to him in the movie, you were like, why'd they have to put this guy in there? Is that guy you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like him. I like his sort of. See, I'm not a CGI villain guy. Like, I want my villains to be like flesh and blood. So, like, my favorite villains are some of the people's most hated villains in movie history. Like, except for the Heath Ledger thing, you know, I'm talking like, I really like Bane from the Batman Dark Knight Rises. I really fucking like Scarecrow from Batman Begins. I really like trying to think. I really like Lex Luthor from Batman versus Superman. Even though he's wacko and crazy, I really like that psychotic behavior that is played by a person and not a CG person. For instance, like in the Justice League movie when it's like Steppenwolf and shit, I'm just like, I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, having the Killmonger guy be sort of like aggressive and like nasty and like talking with like a do you really, you know, like a it gave me the sort of more human vibe, which is what I dig from a villain. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess it all just depends in what you look for in your villains, how much you're going to enjoy this, how much you care about it. I know that the CGI villain that we were looking at was also a guy motion captured, but you know, it's still CGI. It's not the real thing. You know what I mean? It kind of takes me out of it, you know? But then again, that's just coming from a person who likes grounded superhero movies, not superpowers, like, you know, Batman, Judge Dredd, fucking. Even Spider Man's more grounded to me than a lot of these other movies because he's either been A, bitten by a spider, or B, it's technology. So it's kind of similar to Batman, except with Batman never got bitten by a bat and turned into a bat. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can make that comparison. You know, I'm much more of a Spider-Man guy. Like, if I was to say I'm a Marvel guy, in a Marvel guy way, I'm a Spider-Man and Deadpool guy.
How do you feel about Daredevil going by that then, being a bit more grounded?
You're talking about the series, yeah?
Yeah. Or a character in general.
And he was blind, yeah?
Yeah.
I watched the first season. I thought it was all right. But I didn't go any further past that. Like, it's hard to explain because I was a big comic book guy. Even Marvel, like I had Doctor Strange #1. I had like all these Marvel fucking property #1 books, like Spider-Man books, like not #1, but like, you know, the first. I had like number 17, number 14. You know, I had like Iron Man books, Deadpool, New Mutants. You know what I mean? Like I still liked Marvel, but like I have no idea what's going on in the MCU universe. You know what I mean? And yeah, to go see this movie with only really seeing Black Panther, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and the Iron Man movies in the earlier phases and shit. You know what I mean? Like first phase and stuff like that. Like there's a lot in this movie, I'm sure, for people who have stuck around and understand the MCU than there is for people like me who are coming into this as a pretty fresh movie. You know, actually,
Yeah.
I've seen Ant-Man, not Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I've seen Ant-Man, and I really liked Ant-Man. What other Marvel movies have I seen? Like Ant-Man. I don't know, man. I've seen a fair few because I have them all on like in 3D. You know. But yeah, like, look, would I suggest you go see this movie? If you're a Black Panther fan, yes. If you're a Marvel fan, yes. If you're an MCU fan, yes. Obviously, you got to go see it. It's a follow up to one of the most successful movies in the Marvel MCU franchise. It's also the end to Phase 4, so you're going to want to go see that to keep up to date for when Phase 5 starts. But would I suggest you go see this movie if you're a casual MCU person like me, and maybe only seen Black Panther? I would say maybe just wait for home release or something like that, or go see it 3D IMAX or something like that, and then get the most out of the movie that you possibly can, because I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more and gotten a lot more out of it had we seen it in 3D IMAX, and we didn't. And we're going to see Avatar Way of the Water in 3D IMAX, and I have no love for the Avatar, but I cannot wait to see that movie in 3D IMAX. I reckon I'm going to come away from that movie with a lot more positive to say on it than I would have seeing it normally, like we did with Black Panther tonight. So,
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there anything else you want to say before we get into our ranking? Because we're not going to do trivia and we're not going to do goofs, as there is fuck all up at the moment. So we are just going to basically make this a short and sweet review for you all. So I might have to do some cutting around this and stuff. But Alan, where are you going to put this against the other one?
It's a really close call, like a really, really close call. And just based on, I really liked Riri Williams' Ironheart, and I really liked Namor, and I kind of I liked him a bit more as a villain and his the way he was portrayed. I'm going to put it just above, but it's like this is on the wire. Like it's if we could do them next to each other, they would be, but this is just a little fraction above, like 0.05 above.
So, with that, let's take a look at our ranking for Black Panther and also Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Tomye, number 1, Black Panther. Number 2, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. ALANNIS, Wakanda Forever at number 1, and Black Panther at number 2. Now, I believe yesterday I gave Black Panther 1 a 4 out of 5, and you gave it a 4 out of 5. What would you give this movie out of 5?
I would also give it a 4.
I would do the same. I would give it I would give it a 3 out of. Yeah, a 3. I'll give it a 3. I was going to say 2.5, but look, 3, because I just enjoy the flow, the action, the ride of the first one more than I care about like the politics and the Wakanda lore and stuff that came into it, like without any of the action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the parts of action that were good, but you know, didn't kind of meet my expectations for what we got from the first one anyway. So, is there anything else you'd like to say about Wakanda Forever before we wrap it up?
No, I am done.
Very good, very good. So, thank you everyone for tuning in to our ranked and reviewed episode of Wakanda Forever. Now, if you like what we do and you've stuck around this long, please subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, leave a like, share, listen to us all the time. Whether you're on the way to the hospital with your wife who's like crowning at that time, whether you're stolen a police car and you're driving 130 kilometers per hour down the freeway with 7 other police cars chasing you, telling you to pull over, you just fucking crank this shit up. Or whether your child has gone missing and is on milk cartons. On that milk carton, instead of putting the picture of your child, just put the link of our podcast.
And a picture of me going,
¡Ay, Dios mío! All right. All right. All right. All right. All right.
That was almost as dark as the movie.
Yeah.
It was this dark.
Yeah. This dark. Hey, this dark. Wait, I can make it darker.
Wait, here we go.
Look at me.
Good.
Look at
There
me.
we go.
You can't even see me. That's how dark some of the movie was. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Ranked Review. I am your barely being able to see host, Tomye West, joined by my barely being able to see host, ALANNIS Maximus. And that has been our review for Wakanda Forever. And we will see you on our next review for Assassin's Creed, continuing our ranked and reviewed video game movie adapted movies.
That one.
All right. Peace, guys.
Peace.